What happens when the person sleeping next to you is living a secret life? When the smile they show the world is a mask, and their heart beats with a dangerous, hidden truth. We are drawn to stories of power and passion, of glittering lives that seem untouchable. But sometimes, the most terrifying monsters aren't found in dark alleys. They are found in the penthouse suite. They sleep on silk sheets. And they hide their darkest intentions behind a facade of unimaginable wealth. This is the story about the killer next door, and the gilded cage that became a tomb. Hello, and a special welcome to every single viewer, whether you're a long-time subscriber or this is your first time joining us. This is The Killer Next Door, the channel where we pull back the curtain on the most shocking crimes hiding in plain sight. To all of you watching from across the globe, I have to ask, where are you tuning in from? Let me know your city and country in the comments below. I read every single one, and it's incredible to see our community of truth seekers spanning the entire world. Our story begins in a city that defies the very desert it's built upon, Dubai. A place of impossible architecture, where ambition is the local currency and fortunes are made overnight. In this world of shimmering glass and steel, Sheikh Rashid al-Mansur was a titan. He wasn't just rich, he was a force of nature. His name was etched on skyscrapers, his fleet of hypercars were works of art in motion, and his influence stretched across continents. In the boardrooms of the world, his word was law. He was a man carved from old-world traditions, a believer in honor, loyalty, and absolute control. To the public, he was the epitome of success. But behind the closed doors of his palatial estate, a very different man resided. His wife, Sheikha Layla al-Mansur, was the perfect complement to his power. To her millions of social media followers, she was a vision of modern royalty. Her life was a curated stream of haute couture, exclusive charity galas, and a perfume line that smelled like success itself. She was Dubai's darling, an icon of grace and beauty. But the image was a carefully constructed prison. The diamonds that adorned her neck felt like chains. The marble floors of her home were as cold as the emotional distance that had grown between her and the man she married. Their union was a business merger disguised as a fairy tale. Rashid saw a wife as the final, beautiful piece of his empire, a trophy to be displayed and controlled. Layla, a woman who had breathed the air of modern independence, craved passion, conversation, and a partner who saw the woman behind the designer gowns. Every time they stood together for a paparazzi shot, their smiles were a masterpiece of deception. The world saw a power couple, they lived a silent, desperate stalemate. As Rashid's empire grew, so did the chasm between them. He was consumed by the relentless pursuit of more deals, more acquisitions, more power. Layla was left drowning in a sea of luxury, her loneliness a constant, humming note beneath the surface of her glamorous life. She wasn't just a bird in a gilded cage, she was its sole occupant, and the silence was deafening. This profound, aching loneliness was the crack in the foundation. And in a city like Dubai, there is always someone waiting to exploit a weakness. That someone was Sheikh Zayed al-Rashid. Charismatic, ambitious, and dangerously charming, Zayed was a new breed of power. Where Rashid was stoic and traditional, Zayed was a rebel with a disarming smile and a reputation for getting what he wanted. He moved through Dubai's VIP nightlife like a prince, and when he set his sights on Layla, he didn't see a sheikah, he saw a kindred spirit, a beautiful soul trapped in a loveless marriage. Their first meeting was electric. In a hidden lounge, away from the prying eyes of the world, Zayed made Layla feel seen for the first time in years. He didn't talk about business or status, he spoke to her dreams, her desires, the person she was before the crown of diamonds was placed upon her head. It was a dangerous intoxication. What started as a spark of connection quickly ignited into a roaring, forbidden affair. Their world became a shadowy circuit of secret rendezvous. They met in anonymous penthouses with views of the Arabian Gulf, their time together measured in stolen hours. Layla would return home, the ghost of Zayed's cologne on her skin, her heart racing with a mixture of guilt and exhilaration. She was playing a deadly game, and she knew it. Rashid was a man of immense power and paranoia. His network of informants was legendary. But the thrill of feeling truly alive, of being desired rather than owned, was a drug she couldn't quit. What Layla didn't realize was that she wasn't just an escape for Zayed. She was a strategic asset. Zayed saw Rashid as a rival, an old guard that needed to be dismantled. And Layla, with her intimate access to Rashid's world, was the perfect key to his empire. He began to weave a web, whispering not just sweet nothings, but promises of a new life together, a life where they would rule side by side, free from Rashid's shadow. He was systematically manipulating her loneliness, turning her heart into a weapon against her husband. Meanwhile, back in the cold, sterile silence of his office, Rashid's suspicion was hardening into certainty. A wife's intuition is powerful, but a tycoon's paranoia is a force of nature. He noticed the subtle changes, the new, secretive phone, the distant look in her eyes, the charity trips that seemed to last a day too long. The crack in his perfect world was widening, and his pride could not allow it. He needed proof. He needed the truth, no matter how ugly. This is where our story introduces a ghost. A man named Karim Darwish. Karim was a private investigator. A specter who moved through Dubai's elite circles without leaving a trace. He was a master of digital forensics, surveillance, and extracting secrets from the shadows. When Rashid summoned him, the assignment was simple: find the truth. The budget was unlimited, and the only rule was absolute discretion. Karim was a professional void of emotion. He saw the lives of the rich and powerful as a series of interconnected data points, a puzzle to be solved. He began his work with chilling efficiency. He placed digital trackers on Layla's vehicles. He cloned her private phone. He blended into the crowds at her public appearances, a phantom with a camera. He watched as she played her part to perfection. The adored socialite, all while leaving a digital breadcrumb trail straight into Zayed's arms. The evidence began to pile up. Blurry photos from a long-lens camera captured a tender embrace on a private balcony. GPS logs showed her SUV parked at a discreet marina for hours, coinciding with the docking of Zayed's unnamed yacht. But Karim, being a thorough professional, dug deeper than the affair. He followed the money. And that's when he uncovered the true, devastating scope of the betrayal. It wasn't just her heart that Layla was giving to Zayed, it was her husband's fortune. Karim uncovered a complex web of financial transactions. Millions of dollars were being slowly, methodically siphoned from Rashid's holding companies into a series of ghost accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. The authorizations were clever forgeries, but the digital fingerprints led back to Layla. Zayed had convinced her that this was their escape fund, the seed money for their new empire. In reality, he was using her to bleed Rashid dry, destabilizing his rival from the inside out. Layla, blinded by a potent cocktail of love, rebellion, and the promise of freedom, had become an unwitting accomplice in the financial evisceration of her own husband. She was no longer just a cheating wife, she was a traitor. When Karim laid the complete dossier on Rashid's vast, empty desk, the air in the room turned to ice. There were spreadsheets of the stolen millions, time-stamped photos of the lovers, and transcripts of their encrypted messages, which now read less like love letters and more like a corporate takeover plan. Rashid's face, usually a mask of impenetrable calm, contorted with a rage so profound it was silent. This wasn't just a betrayal of their marriage vows. It was a demolition of his legacy, his honor, and his name. In his world, built on the bedrock of reputation, this was a death blow. A dangerous metamorphosis occurred within Rashid al-Mansur that day. The powerful businessman receded, and something far more primal and predatory took his place. His heartbreak curdled into a cold, calculated fury. He would have his revenge. And he would make it look like a tragedy. He devised a plan of chilling simplicity. He invited Layla on a second honeymoon, a romantic night under the stars at his private desert oasis, a luxurious retreat of Bedouin-style tents and a pristine pool, surrounded by the endless, silent dunes. He presented it as a chance to reconnect, to save their marriage. He even gifted her a new, exquisite silk gown and a bottle of rare perfume. It was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation, a trap baited with the very things she craved: attention and romance. Layla, believing her double life was still hidden, arrived at the desert camp with a heart full of delusion and a plan to finally leave him for good. She had no idea she was walking onto a stage set for her own execution. The night was deceptively beautiful. The sky was a blanket of stars, the air was cool, and the only sound was the whisper of the wind over the sand. Rashid had dismissed the entire staff. The security cameras were mysteriously disabled. They were utterly, completely alone in the vast emptiness of the desert. It was there, under the celestial glow, that Rashid presented his final evidence. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He spoke in a low, venomous monotone as he showed her the photos, the financial records, the proof of her financial treachery. The color drained from Layla's face. The illusion shattered. The fear in her eyes was not just of being caught, it was the terror of realizing the man standing before her was capable of anything. What happened next is a scene forever lost to the desert winds. There were no witnesses, no recordings. But the forensics would later tell a story of a violent, desperate struggle. Rashid, a man possessed by a wounded ego and bottomless rage, ensured that the woman who had humiliated him would never speak again. He buried her body deep beneath the shifting sands, a permanent, silent fixture of the desert he once owned. He buried a diamond bracelet with her, a final, twisted symbol of the gilded life that had ultimately led to her death. Then, he got back into his car, fixed his disheveled dishdasha, and drove back to the glittering city, leaving the desert to keep his secret. The cover-up was as meticulous as the murder. Using Layla's own social media accounts, his team began posting pre-scheduled content, sunset photos from her archives, vague quotes about finding oneself. The story was fed to the press. Sheikha Layla, overwhelmed by the pressures of public life, had embarked on a silent, extended wellness retreat to a remote monastery in Switzerland. Rashid played the part of the concerned husband, telling friends and even Layla's family that she needed space, that she would return when she was ready. For a few weeks, the illusion held. But graves, both literal and metaphorical, have a way of revealing themselves. Layla's family grew increasingly suspicious. Her mother knew her daughter would never disappear for so long without a personal call. A sharp-eyed investigator with the Dubai police, unlike the officials Rashid had in his pocket, noticed a discrepancy. The signal from Layla's phone had last pinged a tower near the desert retreat, not an airport. The digital ghost she had left behind began to haunt her killer. The pressure mounted. News outlets, sensing a story far juicier than a wellness retreat, began to dig. The perfect narrative started to fray at the edges. And in the shadows, Kareem Darwish began to sweat. He had been well paid for his silence, but he was no fool. He knew that a man who could kill his wife would have no qualms about silencing a private investigator. Fear became a more powerful motivator than money. Kareem made a copy of every file, every photo, every damning piece of evidence, and he went to the authorities, cutting a deal for immunity and a new identity. With Kareem's testimony, the entire house of cards collapsed. The police obtained a warrant to excavate the desert retreat. It didn't take long for their shovels to find what they were looking for. The discovery of Layla's body, alongside the diamond bracelet Rashid had so foolishly buried with her, was the final, irrefutable piece of evidence. The trial was a global media spectacle. The sheikh, who once commanded boardrooms, now stood in a defendant's cage. Zayed, in a desperate attempt to save himself, testified against Rashid, painting a picture of a manipulative predator who had driven his wife into his arms. He walked away a free man, his reputation in tatters but his liberty intact. Karim, from behind a screen to protect his new identity, delivered the testimony that sealed Rashid's fate. So, what do we take from this tragedy? Was Layla an innocent victim, a woman driven to betrayal by a cold and controlling husband? Or was she a willing participant in a dangerous game that spiraled fatally out of control? Was Zayed a charming savior or a cunning manipulator? And what of Karim, the man who exposed the truth but only to save his own skin? The real killer next door isn't always the one with the knife. Sometimes it's the one who kills with control, with manipulation, with a cold, calculated fury born from wounded pride. This story forces us to look beyond the glittering surface and ask, what darkness lies behind the closed doors of the powerful? Now, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this case? Who do you believe holds the most blame in this tragic chain of events? Share your theories in the comments below. And don't forget, if you were captivated by this deep dive into the dark side of power and passion, you can help us uncover more stories like this. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload to The Killer Next Door. There are countless more stories waiting in the shadows, and together, we can bring them into the light. Thank you for watching.